was a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a valley with grace out of this hole that I've dug for me. He made a valley of grace.
We have all heard of the term out of control, but is it something that we really want to be? Today's episode for Healing Our Brokenness is episode 61, and it is entitled Out of Control in a Crisis. Everyone has some type of routine, even if the routine is in essence doing nothing. We all have some type of routine when it comes to getting up in the morning, going to bed at night. There's some type of thing that we do that is giving us some sense of normalcy, I would say. And in the morning, a lot of us get up and we eat breakfast, or we pack our breakfast and take it with us to work so we can eat our breakfast at work. Sometimes we do a combination of both, a little bit at home and a little bit at work. I know that's been my go-to routine. But in this time of a global pandemic, a lot of us do not have that choice any longer. Our morning routine is getting up and fixing breakfast for ourselves, spouses, children, etc. And after eating breakfast, you're running your home office at the kitchen table, in the basement, or whatever room of the house that you're running it in, but you're not leaving out the door. And then there are others of us, like myself, who are working at essential places of business and having to go outside of the home every day. And then if you are one of those ones that are at home and you've got little children at home, you are trying to navigate your full-time job as well as navigating blocks of time for you to homeschool your children. There are feelings of overwhelm from trying to do it all. And during this time, you are having even a more in-depth appreciation, I would say, for the teachers who do this on a daily basis. If you live by yourself, you're dealing with issues of isolation. For those people who are introverts and who like being alone, it can be a good thing because it's something that they like, but it can also be a bad thing in the sense that it can take them further into isolation or depression without them realizing it. Sometimes too much of a good thing is not a good thing, so to speak. And you are forced to, whether you live by yourself or not, you are forced to have your connection with people via FaceTime, email, texting, Zooming, or any other type of social media. And if you're seeing people in person, such as your neighbors, you're having to practice social distancing. And at times it can actually seem a little bit awkward, so to speak. During this time, the best thing for us to do is to try to involve ourselves in some type of structured activity every day, and preferably at the same time every day. And if it's not at the same time, at least it's some type of normalcy where we're doing that particular activity every day. Unpredictability is one of the leading factors of creating trauma / PTSD in our lives. And so it's best for us to try to have any type of normalcy and structure in a very out of control and unnormalized situation that's going on in our world right now. And so what some of us have done in order to feel secure in our lives, we have adopted our homes, our cars, addictive behaviors, our jobs, our material possessions as fill-ins for our safety and security. And this global pandemic does not discriminate based upon our socioeconomic status, nor our ethnicity or nationality. Everyone has been affected in every area, whether it's emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, financially, socially. In every area, we've all been affected. And for some of us, where our love language might be the language of touch, the social distancing, in that sense, could literally eat a person alive. And so, during these times, what do we do in a state of out of control, bringing that state from out of control 24/7 to having some type of control? We're remembering over in Hebrews, our scripture verse that says, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. And what does that mean? God is our only constant in the world, period. It's not going to be the spouses. It's not going to be our children. It's not going to be boyfriends or girlfriends or our friends for that matter. It's not going to be our bosses. The only consistent, constant thing in our lives is Jesus Christ. However, in order for us to maintain some sense of control and consistency, there are some things that we can do in order to help ourselves. And those things would be eliminating as many ruminating thoughts as possible. And those ruminating thoughts are thoughts that we're having that are negative. And then we're thinking of everything in relation to that negative thought that we can add on. Like we're just going through this whole history of trauma we've had, or a whole history of how someone has wronged us. So we want to eliminate as many ruminating thoughts as possible. The ruminating thoughts go nowhere. They just ruminate. They just keep going on and on. And they're ruminating thoughts because there's no plan or action of how you can, or anything that's helpful to get out of those thoughts. And if we're in a situation of being stuck at home with our stay-at-home lockdowns, etc., then there's just more time to ruminate over how many people are dying, how many people are being tested, how many more places are going to be possibly on lockdown, what other freedoms are going to be taken away from us, which leads to more fear and anxiety and dread. Nothing but fear, anxiety, and dread of ourselves dying, of our family members dying, of our friends dying, our co-workers. I mean, we could just go on and on with that list. So it's one thing we can do in this out of control crisis is limit our exposure to discussions and viewings of deaths and everything that's going on in the world. And limiting our exposures is not the same thing as denial and pretending like what's going on is not going on, as I did for years in my marriage, to turn the other way and like I don't see what's happening. That's not healthy as well. That's being on fantasy island. And that's not what we want to do. We want to acknowledge what's going on and fully acknowledge it, and not fully acknowledging what's going on and then later acknowledging it. That is basically a precursor to self-pity developing. Oh, woe is me. Look what's going on in my life when this is what's going on with everyone. Everyone has something going on. This is a global pandemic. But denial will set ourselves up for that, to pretend like it's not happening with it when it is. And then on the other side, we have the overindulging, where we're focusing on the numbers. 3,000 died today, 4,000 died today, 5,000 died today, total in the whole world. Or how many new cases. When we over-focus on it, we end up reliving it. And by us being at home, our mind is just constantly focusing on these things, which is bringing up more fear, anxiety, and dread, and more room, more space for the devil to get a foothold. What are some of the things that we can do in order to feel some sense of control in all of this? We can set a schedule for reading books that are life-giving. Standing outside and getting fresh air for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Walking for exercise. Listening and watching to life-giving podcasts, to Christian podcasts. Watching the birds and other creatures in nature as they move about and listening to them intentionally. Listening to praise music and preaching and reading blogs, watching good, wholesome family movies and Christian movies and movies with good content, and that do not have a whole world of disastrous things, which is what we're already dealing with. Coming up with new recipes based upon whatever ingredients that you have in your pantry or cupboards at home. We can't control our meetups with our friends when that takes place. We don't have the freedom to choose where the things are going to be available at the grocery store and what we want to do when we want to do it. But we do have the freedom to choose our thoughts, to choose the words that come out of our mouths, our meal times for home, our exposure to everything that's going on regarding the pandemic, the length of time we spend on social media to numb us out, finding blessings and gratitude in the craziness, what we do in our free time. And when we come up with different ways of what we can control and what we can't control, that is very helpful. It is also helpful to allow ourselves to be angry and to tell God, you know what, I'm angry about this. And I have done it. And just to be real, because when we're not being real and he already knows our thoughts, he knows our hearts anyway, it interferes with our worship and praise. And so just being real with him, you know what, Lord, I'm upset about what's going on, about not that you did this, Lord, but that you allowed it, that you didn't stop it. And just be real with him and telling him your thoughts and your feelings and asking him to help you to have some type of sense of control. And then lastly, we want to press in and allow ourselves to feel the feelings instead of using social media and whatever addictive patterns of behavior to numb ourselves out with everything that's going on. We want to press in and remind ourselves to feel. I hope that something that was said in this episode would jog something in you, in your memory, or maybe what you did or did not do, or could have done differently. And I want to thank you for listening to episode 61, Out of Control in a Crisis. Until next time.
You turn those valleys into places to learn instead of burn and perish away. And nights never so cold without his grace. How could I say that I've seen the world from his great love? How could I know what he could love? How would I've seen what he had in store for me if I didn't give up and let him be my valley of grace, where things would change and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace never was the same after he had died. The love that refines. So much I wish I could give back, but I'm not intact to be sharing all of that. You took the price to give me that life, and now it's never gonna fade away. When I see I need more of him, he whispers the sweetest of mercies upon my ears, and I won't go back the way it was again.